There we go.
What we did down in the library though was different.
Yes,
You
yeah.
really explained the reasons and
All of the,
method and so on.
right, yeah,
Which
that
was
was,
really important because we've not had that. It's kind of,
yeah, when you're starting out, I think it's so important to go through those basics and, you know, the core, the alignment, the breath is always so important. Yeah, the reason for each motion and all of that stuff.
I used my breath yesterday. I had a dental procedure and I literally was focusing on breathing in and breathing out. To keep my attention away from, you were gonna say something, I'm sorry. No, I just wish I had went to this once, the library.
Yeah.
If I needed it, just whenever my head.
Yeah.
That.
That's why I was thinking, I was like, I wonder if I could do that again. So, I will certainly let you guys know when we do that. To start today, we're gonna lay down on our backs on our mats. So if you guys wanna go ahead and do that. Today, we are talking about living within our limitations, which is not always my favorite subject because I really like to try to live beyond my limitations, but it's super important and really an important thing for me personally to remember that I have limits and it's okay to have limits and I don't have to judge myself for not being able to do something and all of those things. So our meditation for today comes from a book called The Wisdom of Stability. And it's a really beautifully written book, just really simple ideas that are presented in a really nice way. But he writes in here, we are like a kid who jumps off the roof, convinced that he can defy gravity. But when we do that, we often feel the consequences of our disdain for the limits of time and space. So sometimes we think, you know, I can do everything, I can even fly, and we're like that kid who jumps off and then gravity helps remind us, oh wait, we do have limits. So the first part of our meditation today is to, if you can, take some deep breaths. Maybe start with some affirmations for yourself of the things that, the person who you are, but also the things that you can do. So start there, affirming yourself or asking God to affirm you if that's part of your practice. And again, just taking some nice deep breaths. And the next invitation that I'm going to give you is to think about your limits. So what are areas in your life where maybe you feel like you've been living beyond your limits a little bit, doing too much, so to speak? And where might you need to kind of come back to reality of what am I actually able to do within this time and space? Again, taking just some deep breaths as you lovingly consider that, not judging yourself for it, but just looking at that in a kind way, saying, it's okay, I do have that limit, and maybe admitting that to yourself. So when you're ready, we're going to go ahead and draw our knees into our chests as we're lying on the floor here, rocking back and forth from side to side. Continuing to breathe deeply. We're going to take our hands out to either side as we drop our knees off to one side. And you can either open your palms up toward the ceiling, or you can take your palms down toward the floor. Using that breath to soften and relax into your shoulder, into that gentle spinal twist, even in through your top hip. And then taking those knees one at a time back to center. And go ahead and take your hands to the front side of your knees. This time, rotating those knees, drawing some little circles. And then going the opposite direction, drawing some little circles the other way. And coming back to center, extending those arms out to either side once more. And then we're going to drop those knees off to the other side. Again, the invitation is to think about what our limits are, and then also to do that in a way that's not judging ourselves for those limitations. When you're ready, you can take one knee at a time back to center, taking those hands to the front side of your knee, and you can rock back and forth across that low back. And then from here, if you'd like, you can actually come back to center, take your hands behind your knees, and then rock yourself up into a seated position. Or you can turn to the side and push yourself up. So either way is just fine. You're coming to a seated position on your mat. And here we're going to do some mini cat-cows or seated cat-cows. So we're thinking about elongating our spine, making sure that those shoulders are down away from our ears. We're going to look up and open up the chest. And then as we tuck our chin and exhale, we're going to start to round our back, sitting back on our tailbone. And coming back up, opening up the chest when you're ready for your next inhale. And then tucking that chin, rounding the back, sitting back on that tailbone. Do maybe 5 or 6 of these at your own pace. Done, you can come back to center. We're going to take one hand down to the mat, inhale the opposite arm up, and then exhale off to the side. So right now I've got my right arm on top, which means that I'm really anchoring in through my right hip. So whichever side you're on, just making sure that both hips are grounded and rooted into the mat. Switching sides, we're going to take that right hand down, left arm up, and then exhale off to that right side. Same thing here, making sure that your sits bones stay on the mat. Really opening up that side body. Coming back to center. We're going to go ahead and take our hands to the mat in front of us. And we're going to pull ourselves up onto all fours. And then from here, we're going to take our toes together and then take our knees as wide as the mat, sitting those hips back on top of your heels, stretching forward, kind of sinking into this position. Taking a nice deep breath. And then while you stay here in this child's pose for a moment, I'm going to read the next part of our meditation for today. It says, human beings need to understand the difference between the Creator and creation. The condition of time is one way to understand this distinction. The things which happen under the condition of time are in the future, or not yet in being. They are in the present, which means they are already existing, or they're in the past, which means they're no longer in being. That was written by Augustine in his book, The City of God. And then he continues to write, but God comprehends all these things in a stable and eternal present. And that is a little bit wild to me to think about how God comprehends all of these things from an eternal and stable present. So God's not stuck in the past and he's not too wrapped up in the future, but he is always lovingly present with us in this time and space, and is like that no matter what time it is at whatever point in history or in the future. When you're ready, you can go ahead and start to walk your hands gently back towards your knees. We're going to bring those knees together. We're going to come up onto our knees. We're going to take our hands to our low back space and open up that chest as we look up toward the ceiling. You can shift your hips forward slightly. Again, using those hands for support so you're not crunching into that low back space. You're opening up the front side of the body up through your abdominal muscles. And coming back up, you're going to sit those hips back, stretch those arms forward, really child's pose. This time, you're going to pull yourself up to all fours and then walk your hands forward slightly, coming into a modified plank. We're going to hold this just for a few breaths, so probably at least 3 breaths if you can. Thinking about really pressing the mat away from you, that engages all of the muscles in your arms. Thinking about sliding those shoulder blades together and down along your spine, so that way that holds your shoulders down away from your ears so you're not sinking into those shoulders. And then go ahead and lower yourself all the way down to the mat. Leaving your hands there, we're going to push ourselves up, working ourselves onto our elbows. So from here, we're going to come into this is Sphinx pose. So your shoulders are directly over top of your elbows. Fingertips are spread out wide. Your head is up in a natural extension in your neck. And go ahead and take some deep breaths. Seeing if you can open up that chest a little further. And go ahead and come down to the mat. This time taking those hands underneath your shoulders. We're going to push up through that modified plank. And we're going to shift our weight back onto our knees and hands, coming into tabletop or all fours. From here, we're going to take that right foot, leaving the right knee bent. We're going to take that up toward the ceiling. And then if you would like, you can do a couple of these where you're going to take your foot down and extend, and then bend up toward the ceiling, down and extend, bend up toward the ceiling. Maybe doing like 5 of those or so. You're going to really feel that in your hamstring there. And when you've done as many as you would like to do, then you're going to take that knee, slide it all the way through between your 2 front hands, coming into pigeon pose on the right hand side, and then folding forward over top of that front knee. this is enough of a stretch, feel free to stay here. If you'd like a little deeper stretch, you're welcome to start to kind of work that foot out away from your body. That will deepen the stretch for you. When you're ready, you're going to walk your hands underneath your shoulders once more, tucking the back toes. You're going to slide that right foot back to meet left, coming up into a full plank. Holding this for a breath or two. And then go ahead and drop to your knees, untuck the toes, lower all the way down. And then push ourselves up onto those elbows once more. Again, working those elbows underneath those shoulders, spreading out our fingertips, relaxing all the muscles in your legs. Relaxing that low back space, opening up the chest. You might feel the tension that's coming down through your sides. That's what's keeping us up in this position. In our arms, but also through all those little muscles in our sides. And then go ahead and lower yourself down. Bring your hands underneath your shoulders. Pushing up through our modified plank again, shifting our hips back over top of our knees. And coming back into our tabletop position. So here we want to check in that our wrists are underneath our shoulders, that our knees are underneath our hips. We're going to shift our weight to that right knee, taking that left foot, leaving the left knee bent up toward the ceiling. Keeping your hips square to the mat. Then we're going to go ahead and lower that foot down and back up. Again, doing that probably 5 or so times if you can. If that's not accessible to you today, then just keep it bent with that foot up toward the ceiling. And when you've done as many of those as you would like, you're going to slide that knee in between those two front hands. Coming down into pigeon pose on the other side. Sitting nice and tall, and then folding forward. In this position, you can always flip over onto your back if that's not comfortable for you, or if you need to have a little bit more control about how much pressure is put on that outside hip. So if you're doing the modified version of this, just swing around here real quick. That looks like this, drawing this into your chest like that. If you're not doing the modified version, then you are staying here. Then we're starting to walk our hands underneath our shoulders once more, tucking the back toes, straightening the back leg. We're going to step that left foot back to meet the right, coming into full plank. Taking a breath. And lowering those knees down, tucking the toes, and then lowering ourselves all the way down to the mat, turning your head to one side, allowing the arms to come down to either side. Go ahead and take a few deep breaths here, giving those arms a little bit of a break, allowing the shoulders to relax. And as you rest here, I'm going to grab our readings again here. He writes, the author of The Wisdom of Stability writes, "What we hardly ever want to admit is that we are limited creatures. Subject to the confines of time and space, we cannot be anywhere, anytime. As a matter of fact, we can only be in in this place now. So what does that look like for us today to show up wherever we are now? To just be fully present in whatever moment we're in. When you're ready, we're going to start to move our hands underneath our shoulders once more. We'll start to work ourselves up into that modified plank pose, and then shift our weight back to all fours once more. From here, we're going to tuck our toes, and we're going to lift our hips for our first downward facing dog of the day. So we're going to step those feet in. Just taking a minute to help our bodies adjust to this pose. And really feel that on the back side of our bodies. Then we're going to go ahead and look towards our hands. And then we're going to allow our knees to come back down onto the mat. Untucking our toes, walking our hands back towards our knees. And round ourselves up. And this time, I'm going to switch my position here on the mat. So we're going to move into gate pose. So we're going to have our knees hip width apart here. We're going to take our right leg out to the side. And then we're going to lift this left arm up as we inhale. And then exhale over to that right hand side. Using that right hand for support. Then coming back to center if you like. You can take it the other way. So we're going to take that left hand down, reaching the right arm up overhead, getting a really long stretch on the right side of the body. Continuing to breathe. And from here, when we come back up to center, and think about engaging those core muscles and then lifting with those core muscles back to center. We're going to bring that right leg in. We'll take the other side. So take that left foot out. Standing really nice and tall. Inhale that left, we're inhaling the right arm, sorry. Inhale the right arm and then lean off to that left hand side. Continuing to breathe. Just doing as much as you can. And then taking that arm all the way down to the mat if you can. And reaching that left arm up overhead. Getting a really long stretch on the left side of the body. And then from here, again, focusing on your core and lifting with this outside oblique. You're going to go ahead and lift back to center. Bring those arms down, bring that leg in. Now we're going to turn toward the short edge of our mat once more. Bring our hands down underneath our shoulders, coming to all fours. We're going to tuck our toes and lift our hips up into downward facing dog once more. You've got options here for downward facing dog. If this is not comfortable for you, you can come down to your elbows, or you can come down into what we call a puppy dog pose, which is like with your knees on the mat, with your hands extended forward this way. So you've got, or you can come into a child's pose too. Those are all options. When you're ready, you're going to walk your hands slowly back towards your feet. Coming into a forward fold. You might notice how it still stretches the back side of the body, but it is stretching a little differently now. gonna walk our hands over to that left foot, turning our spine just slightly. Continuing to breathe. Walking our hands over to that right foot. Taking a few deep breaths. Remembering that you have a choice here. Coming back to center. And your choice is you can choose for your body how deep you want to go. If you want to back off, you can. If you want to just come and sit on your mat for the rest of the practice, you're allowed to do that. Give yourself permission to do what you need to do to take care of yourself today. When you're ready, you can bend your knees. Put your hands on your knees. And then very slowly, we're going to round ourselves up. Our head should be the very last thing that comes up. Good. We're going to inhale both arms up overhead. Then we're going to sweep our arms all the way down, coming back to the forward fold. From here, we're going to lift into flat back pose. And then exhale all the way down to forward fold. We go ahead and sit our hips down and lift into chair pose if you can. And then take those hands back down to the ground, lifting those hips, coming back into forward fold. This time we're going to walk our hands forward, coming into plank pose. And sliding that right knee in between those two front hands. And then bending down into pigeon pose here. So again, we're returning to our question of what does it look like when we show up fully present in the moment in which we're in. For some of us, we might not be able to contemplate that. That might feel like too much, and that's okay. Again, we're living within our limitations. We're just doing as much as we can. And for some of us, we might be thinking, I know how I would be if I showed up fully in that moment, but maybe that's not how I want to be. Maybe there's some things to contemplate there. Either some grace to give yourself or maybe something else that you need in that moment. When you're ready, you're going to walk your hands underneath your shoulders again. Tuck those back toes, straighten the back leg, step that right foot back to meet the left. And this time, we're going to shift our hips up toward the ceiling, stepping in, coming into downward facing dog. Pause in here for a breath or two. And then walking our hands all the way back towards our feet. Bending our knees deeply, placing our hands on our knees, and very slowly rounding ourselves up. All right, this time inhale, arms up overhead. And then sweep those arms all the way down into our forward fold. Inhale up to flat back. Exhale all the way down into forward fold. Go ahead and sit those hips back and lift up into chair pose. And then as you exhale, go ahead and take those hands back down and lift your hips. This time we're going to walk our hands all the way forward, coming back into plank pose. Holding this here for a moment. And then sliding that left leg forward. Coming into pigeon pose on the other side. Go ahead and come down to the mat. The author here writes a lot more, but eventually in the chapter, we come to this. He says, over time, we can see how the gift of a rhythm of life with God transforms a community and the world around it. Over time, we can see how the gift of a rhythm of life with God transforms a community and the world around it. But in order to do that, we have to be able to show up fully present in the moment in which we are. Take another deep breath here. When you're ready, you can go ahead and start to walk those hands underneath your shoulders, touching the back toes, straightening the back leg, stepping that left foot back, coming back into our plank pose. And then again, lifting those hips, coming into our downward facing dog position. And then starting to walk those hands all the way back towards our feet. Coming back into our forward fold. And bending those knees, hands on our knees. And then very slowly rounding ourselves up once more. Very good. And that is the end of our active portion of the day. We are going to move into our balancing postures. And so again, as always, feel free to move to a chair or toward a wall if you would like, or you're welcome to stay on your mat if you would like to do that too. That says wall.
So this is the yoga book. This is, hey.
So we're going to start with our feet hip width apart. We're going to think about standing nice and tall, about engaging our core, which means that our tailbones are softened down. So we're coming into that standing mountain pose. And for today, we're going to take our hands behind our backs, interlace our fingers, and pull down at our spines to open up our chests. And then part of our balancing posture today is another forward fold, but this time with our arms up behind us. So we're leaning forward, bringing our hands up overhead, keeping our balance as we do so. If you want a little bit more of a challenge, you can close your eyes. And releasing those arms down to the mat. We're going to go ahead and lift our arms out to the side, engaging our core, pressing our feet into the mat, arms up overhead. And then exhale, both arms down. Now we did the warm-ups for this, but we're going to move into our chair pose. So we're going to shift our hips back, making sure that our knees are not jutting out over top of our toes. And then if you can, you're going to lift onto the balls of your feet. And if you would like, again, to move into the next level of challenge, you can start to keep your weight on the balls of your feet. You're straightening your legs as you fold forward. I couldn't quite do it without a little assistance there. And then if you would like to add even another layer of challenge, you can bring your arms out to either side for a little bird pose. And then you can bring those arms back towards your heart center, start to bend your knees deeply, coming back into your chair, set your heels down, and then stand up out of that pose. Ooh, that's a new one, huh? So let's try that one more time. So if you need to shake out your legs, or if you want to do a different pose, you're welcome to. But for those of us who would like, we're going to try that again. So again, coming down into our chair pose. I was like, how did I start this for a second? Oh man. So go ahead and shift your hips back, coming into chair pose. Get nice and rooted and grounded through your feet. And then start to shift your weight onto the balls of your feet. And then from here, you're going to start to straighten your legs, keeping your balance on your toes, on the balls of your feet. And then from here, you can go ahead and take those arms out to either side. Almost like you were a little bird on the edge of a bird bath, having a little drink. When you're ready, you can take those hands back to heart center. Shift those hips back and down. Back into our chair pose. Go ahead and send the heels down. And then stand up out of that. Release the arms down. Very good. All right, shaking out those legs. We're going to go ahead and come back down to the mat. So we're going to lay back down. Bring your knees into your chest. If you'd like to rock back and forth, cross that one back if you're welcome to. So one of the things that we learn when we learn to live within our limitations is we learn also to be present in pain. We learn that that's part of life and how to navigate that in the best way possible. When you're ready, you can bring those knees back to center, extend your arms out to either side, and then dropping those knees off to one side. I'm going to read another little portion here from this book for you. So he writes again, wherever we find ourselves, these rhythms can be our link to the eternal dance around the throne of God. In them, we learn the cadence of life that lasts forever, interrupting this world's broken systems, even now, with signs of hope. So to put it a different way, we learn that we can't do everything, but we can do some things. When you're ready, you can go ahead and start to take one beat at a time back to center. And then we're going to drop those knees off to the other side. And then leaving our arms out open to either side. Let's see. some deep breaths here. And taking one knee at a time back to center. You're going to leave your right knee in toward your chest, and you're going to extend your left leg all the way down to the mat. And if you can, you're going to take that knee across your body, allowing your spine to twist off to the side as you take that right arm out to the side. When you're ready, you can go ahead and bring that back towards center, just very gently. Taking that knee in toward your chest. If you'd like, you can start to reach for the outside edge of this right foot, and you're going to take that right foot toward the ceiling for half baby pose. Take another deep breath. On the next exhale, go ahead and release that foot. Take that leg all the way down to the mat. Bring back the left knee in toward your chest. We're going to take that left knee across the body, extending that left arm out to the side. Ready, you can go ahead and come back toward the center, drawing that left knee into your chest. And then again, starting to reach for the outside edge of that left foot. And then taking that foot toward the ceiling, drawing that left knee in towards your left armpit. You can release that all the way down. Allowing both legs to come down to the mat. We're going to inhale both arms up overhead. Pausing for a few breaths here as you stretch your fingertips toward one wall and your toes toward the opposite wall for a full body stretch. On your next exhale, go ahead and sweep those fingertips along with the leg down alongside your body. Relax those feet. Allow them to fall open. Relaxing your hips, the front side and the outside and the back side. Softening your belly as you just allow your breath to come to you. Relaxing your chest and your jawline and your forehead. We'll take just a few moments of silence here before we close. And you can start to wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes. If you'd like to rotate your feet, waking up your ankles, and bend your knees and bring your feet to the mat. Take a nice deep breath. Then roll into one side. Pushing yourself up gently. And into a seated position. And then let me pray for us. God, thank you that you are ever present. And that you, in your stability and wisdom, are present with us. God, would you help us to recognize our own limitations and that that's not a bad thing. God, would you give us wisdom to know what the priorities are in our lives as we recognize our limitations. What's the next best thing to focus on? Lord, we offer ourselves to you. We thank you for this time and space again. We love you, and it's in your name we pray. Amen.